Welcome, everybody. And today we're talking with Pallah Baker from Unbound. And welcome, Pallah. It's great to have you here.
Thank you.
So, Pallah, can you just, I know you're going to talk to us about a change that you've made in your life, but can you just paint a picture for us of what was life like before this change occurred?
Okay. Before the change occurred, I was really what I call walking between two worlds. I was walking really heavily footed, in the physical, mundane, what I call the mundane world of life and work and bills and saving for your retirement and, all of those things in terms of what society, the collective society deems as success. And the spiritual realm, which has really been my calling since I was as early as I can remember. And so I had always felt split between the two. And right before the change, I was at a point in my life where my children had all grown, and I finally had the freedom and the flexibility, per se, to choose which road did I really want to walk. And so I spent a number of years sort of weaving back and forth between the two, trying to figure out, I guess the real truth between my heart and my head, and reconciling those two together. So that, weaving between those two roads for a couple of years was also a process of weaving my heart and my head together in this way so that everything was unified.
So, what was it that kind of prompted you to think, okay, I feel like that a change is needed?
Yeah, that's a great question. Part of it, part of it was trial and error. So I had a spiritual calling in probably 2016, in which I was told, pull up all of your roots, get ready to be mobile, and get the kids ready, because I had been a single mom with three kids, and like I said, they were at that age where they were fledging, and so I did that for a number of years. I asked, what does pulling up my roots mean? In the physical world, that means anything that kept me in one place, kept me heavy, kept me from not being able to move about. And that meant bills and debt, and even how I earned a living, my relationships, the things that I had in my life, the material things that I had. And so I I thought I did a good job in 2020. I decided to, the kids were great. Pretty much I sold my house back east. I sold in New Hampshire, of the US, and I sold probably at least 2/3 of all of my stuff. I also then met my current husband around that time, and decided to move across the country to follow this lifelong dream of living in the desert. And I did that. But as I was venturing, over the course of a couple of years, as I got the calling and then made the shift to go, I knew there was two choices. One choice for me was to follow this dream of moving to the desert and getting a new home and starting a whole new life, and answering to this calling, which I really wasn't sure what it was. And the other road that I could take was to live a completely nomadic life, move into another dream of mine had always been to live in an Airstream. So of the two things, for me, it seemed easier to reconcile in my brain, with my ego, to move across the country and get a home. That's what I was used to, sticks and bricks home. And but it wasn't really what I wanted to do. So that was the first thing I did. I moved across the country and got a home, sticks and bricks, and did that for 10 months. And then some other things happened, and then I shifted again.
So, what I'm interested in is the people around you, like family and friends, etc. Did they have any views or opinions on you making this kind of a change?
Yeah, I mean, and that's part of it, right? Because we're part of we're all part of the collective society. And by that, I mean our communities that we're in, but also globally, in terms of our country, et cetera, and our families, right? So that's all, because we're all connected, everything that we do impacts the rest. And what they do impacts us as well. So when I first, gave my notice at my work and told my kids I was doing this, my kids thought it was great. They were like, Mom, you should do this, you know. And my but my friends and the people that I worked with thought that I was a little crazy. Why would you give up a good job that you worked so hard to, get to, with, the benefits and the retirement, all those things? And why would you give up a perfectly beautiful home that you have in the country? You had a lovely home. So there was, there was a dichotomy there. I mean, I had to really work through some differing views, but that's part of change. I think the biggest part of change is reconciling within yourself. What is my truth?
Mm.
And we have to be able to separate from the collective energy of everything else around us. So yeah, it took a little bit of time, and I did waver back and forth. Am I crazy for leaving everything and moving across the country? But I have a very strong connection with my creator, and I've always had a really strong spiritual guidance system. So I was at peace with it.
Yeah. So I'm interested in that bit there. So how did you, what did you actually do to kind of reach that peace stage when you knew that was the right thing for you?
Yeah. For me, because the calling that I had had was so strong, and I had really been listening to that calling for 4 years, that whisper, I call it a whisper for me, that says, it literally would come in and say, pull up your roots. And because it was so strong and I had heard it myself, I knew that it was true. I didn't know why, but I knew that there would be a reason. Part of it was, the pandemic had just landed in 2019, 2020. I was now working remotely from New Hampshire, and I just felt like it was a ripe time for change. My kids had grown and they were ready to, they were out on their own now. So again, more closure in my life. And I had, I had had financial success. Success in terms of what the world would say is successful. I had that. And I just needed adventure. And because I only had to care for myself at the time, I really felt like no matter what, I can do this.
Mm.
I can do this. And so, when I started to, in the preparation process is key, I think, to big change. With big change, and I close my eyes a lot when I'm really connecting with source energy. So, with big change, what happens for me, the path that works, is as I get a calling and I listen to that calling, and I might just listen to it for a while. And then there's a process of speaking back with spirit and saying, okay, well, what does that mean? And then maybe receive another prompting or another, calling, or some other piece of information comes through. And then there's a process of, well, what does that mean? Can you show me more? And then more information comes through. And so eventually you get to this place where all of these little fragments that we think are maybe just made up in our head, or synchronistic, right, without meaning or purpose, they start to add up and create this big picture. And when we look at the picture, it was a moment of gasping, like, oh, I get it. Oh my God, I get it. Like, I understand what all of this has meant now for the past, couple of years. And that again is more confirmation. It's more of a, what I call power behind your dream.
Mm.
And I think with a lot of callings and change, there's a gestational period, really. That's where we receive the the vision, and then we hold it, we nurture it for a period of time. And that nurturing period is where we're feeding it and we're feeding ourselves. So we're feeding ourselves moments where we have courage, where we have faith, where we have trust. We're doing those things in our daily practice so that we can have the strength to essentially birth the baby, birth the vision into this physical reality.
Yeah.
And when you're in that process, that gestational period, and the pieces of the vision just keep coming and coming in little blips,
Mm.
you just know that it means something because it's all fitting together. And eventually, with all change, I get to the point where I can then start saying, okay, I understand now. And in order to do this, I need this. I need X, I need Y, I need Z. And so I literally just would, pointed to a map and said, I want to move where it's green and I need a house for this much money or less per month, or a place to live. And I need work and blah, blah. So I named the things that I knew I would need: food, shelter, safety, water. Um, and, um, and then it appeared literally 3 days later, everything that I said that I needed appeared.
Okay.
And so again, more affirmation. And then as you're getting there, you're like, okay, well, I need a moving truck and I need to sell all this stuff. And then you realize that all your stuff's sold in a day. And so again, it's more affirmation. So it's not a process of just waking up one day, having this grand vision, taking a leap, and then everything is hunky dory. It really is we're in relationship with spirit all the time. And so we have to nurture that relationship. And we have to have trust in it. And lean into it. And we have to ask for help, right? Because being vulnerable is a huge part of dissolving the ego and moving forward. So I know it's a little bit longer, but it's not quite, so simple. It takes a commitment, spiritual growth and big change and transformation of any kind takes commitment.
Yeah. So you moved.
Yes.
What happened next?
We moved into it's funny, I just mentioned that I asked for we, meaning my husband, because we had just gotten married the year before. We asked for safety. We had found a house to rent, and we landed there one day and we thought, oh my God, where are we? We're in the middle of New Mexico in the rural countryside, and it's a very different world. And we woke up the next morning to see a police car parked in front of the little house that we rented. And it turns out that the person across the driveway from us was a police officer, and we had to laugh because we had asked for safety. And so anyway, we stayed there for about 10 months and just really fell in love with the land. The whole time, the calling that I had was just to keep walking. And so I spent a phenomenal amount of time every day just walking on the land in the mountains, while looking for work and launching my business for the first time, my transformational coaching practice. And like I said, it was also COVID, so it was really quiet. The world was quiet at that time. And during that 10-month period, my previous home sold, and we started looking for a piece of land to move on to. And things didn't quite work out with that. In the last moment, we ended up pulling out of the contract. And then we found another home about an hour and a half away, and we moved into that home. I had a very, very clear vision that this was a home for us, a place to reconnect with the land and the desert, to just really be in the canyons, be in the sand, really immerse myself in the wind of the desert, and even to develop a relationship with snakes and tarantulas and all the things that I was afraid of, right? And there on the property also was there was an extra building there. And as soon as I saw it, I had a vision of kind of like a tiny house and an art studio. And so I worked with a local builder who turned out to be a pastor. wonderful fellow who came and built it out to the specifications that I asked, and it became a thriving Airbnb and a place for spiritual renewal for people. And we did that for 3 years before selling everything and then moving into an Airstream, which was, remember in the beginning, I had two paths. One was move to the Southwest and get a house and, start your business and do the regular thing. And the other part of it was, well, you could also just go live in an Airstream and just keep traveling.
Mm.
So
So
ultimately,
yeah, well, what prompted that then? Because that's another big change.
yeah, what prompted that was all of the we have children all over the country, and aging parents on different, completely opposite sides of the country. And the Airbnb, the spiritual renewal loft, I called it the loft in the desert, it had become so busy that it was constant care and upkeep, while I was also running my own new practice, and clients were coming in for that. And we were doing a lot of ceremonial work on the land. I was also very dedicated to my art practice, and so it just got so busy. And we found that every dollar that we had, every moment that we had, was going back into taking care of this beautiful property.
Mm.
And we didn't have time to go visit our children and family. And so after 3.5 years, and trying to get a property manager to come and help and whatnot, things just didn't work out that way. And Spirit said, well, if you want to be free of this, to be able to be more on the land and travel more and see the children, you're gonna have to let go of this. Part of my work in this world is to be on the land in different places in nature, and to call in energies to help heal the land, and healing waterways, healing places that have been maybe devastated by really, it's really the touch of man's hand in a forceful way. And it's important for me to be able to move about. And having a home that really became the roots that I had been told previously that I needed to give up,
Yeah.
which was really quite ironic. It was, I realized in that moment after about 3.5 years that, well, I just traded one situation for another, just on different sides of the country, but I didn't really do the thing that Spirit was asking me to do, which was to lighten up, pull up all of my roots, and be ready to move when I needed to move. And so that's what we did. Just almost a year ago now, we sold everything again, and the business, and hit the road, and we've not looked back. I've loved every moment of it. The simplicity, and the spontaneity, the flexibility, and the myriad of people that I meet along the way has been such a blessing.
And what was that process of letting go? Because I think it's something a lot of people have yearn to have that freedom, but the actual letting go of all the stuff in our lives can be difficult. How was it for you?
Yeah, it was very hard, very difficult. We have attachments, everything that we have has a memory of a person or an experience. And some people hold on to more things than others. I had already tended to live pretty lightly, but um, I love space. I love creating sacred space. And so for me, not having a space to call my own, that was, just mine, that I could share with the world, was difficult. I'm also very connected with the earth, as I said, and so I love gardening and growing things. And so not having a place to do that was very difficult. But the easiest part, most exciting part, I think, really was looking at all of my stuff inside the home, and, selling off or giving away, donating just droves of clothing and things on the walls, and And it was a process of several months. And as I went through that process and started to, let go of things, I began to feel lighter and lighter and lighter and lighter, to the point where I was almost giddy. And I think a lot of people can really resonate with the phrase of, yeah, someday I'd like to do that. Or someday when I have more time, I'd really like to do my art or make my poetry or visit these people, or, there's always that someday sort of element to our lives. And I didn't want to live that way anymore. I wanted to make someday today.
Yeah.
And as I moved towards doing that, I began to feel more and more joy. And still, even today, living in a little tiny Airstream, every time we stop somewhere for more than 2 weeks, I'm getting rid of stuff. I'm donating stuff. I'm just looking to get rid of more and more and more.
Mm. So, life in an Airstream, just tell us some of the ups and some of the perhaps the maybe if there are downsides as well.
Yeah. There are the downsides, I think, are just what you would expect. It's a small space. So you have to want to be with the people and energies that you're with, such as we have 2 dogs. Um, and So that would probably be the biggest challenge. But I think for me, was very careful about what type of, you know, home I moved into, if you will. Like, I had researched for a while and just really sat with what is it that spirit, is saying is best. So I felt good with the Airstream that we chose. It is a fully composting, green, emerald green certified, rig with lots of solar, so we can be, we don't have to be plugged into power, which is beautiful. And it affords me more time to be in nature. So I spend probably about 80% of every day outside, which connects me with the land even more. I work outside, I walk outside, and that gives my husband the space to do what he needs to do inside. Of course, there's Starlink now, which has made it, possible for all of us humans to travel, all over the place and still have connectivity. But what I have found in being in such a small space is that I am forced into more quiet, still moments. And those moments connect me to my core.
Mm.
And they connect me to my spiritual guidance system in a way that I couldn't be before. I also find that as I've emptied out things, I've also begun to really empty out or lessen food consumption, material consumption. So as you begin to live more simply, you begin to spend your time on the things that matter most to you. And you also begin to really rein in where you're placing too many of your resources carelessly. So into the food that we eat and, into the things that we buy. So a lot of things are changing for me in a really beautiful way. It's a change, it's a shift. You have to know that you want it when you do it.
Mm. And do you see this as something long term, or is it until the next guidance comes along?
Yeah, for sure. It's long term. Like, it's been almost a year now. We'll do this, we expect, for 3 to 5 years at least, probably. And a big part of it is when you change how you live and you live more simply, you then can be more thoughtful about how you earn money. And like I said, what you're giving your time to. And so this really is a time of rebirth, not only for me, but also for my husband. And it's again, real true transformation. Well, maybe for some happens overnight, but for most of us, it takes a while. It's a process. And the world is changing so rapidly. Um, And so I really feel as though we're in this, the world is in a gestational period. We personally are in this gestational period, and it's as though we're living simultaneously in the same energetic space that the world is transitioning through. And for me, I just feel as though we're holding space for all this great change. And my focus in life and my role right now is to just cultivate more love and peace within me so that I can bring that out into the world with all of the people that I see and work with and encounter. So I'm looking forward to doing that for a few years, 3, 5 years, probably.
And how has it changed the way that you work?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I work a lot in nature now. My work is oftentimes confidential, so I need to be in a separate space where nobody else is around. And we typically travel to areas because we can move about. We move to areas where the weather tends to be really nice and warm. And so I spend a lot of time, I take my computer and I'll go up into the mountains or into a canyon and I'll take a client there. Or I'll, right now I'm currently staying in a monastery, a retired monastery, I should say. And it's also a wildlife sanctuary. And so there's a lot of room here. There are hundreds of acres that I can choose from. Um, and my world is really remote in the sense of I work remotely. Um, I would say that one thing that I would like to see change in the next, over this next year as I travel about, I would like to start doing more groups in person within the communities that I visit. So that is something that I'm planning forward. I do a lot of community spiritual growth circles, manifestation circles, and I would like to start doing some of those, maybe, you know, in communities as we travel. So that's a change that I'd like to see over the next year.
And give us some idea of the sort of places you've traveled to since you've been traveling then.
Sure, yeah. Well, only in the United States, what I call, you know, Turtle Island. We've gone up along the border of Canada. We may go into Canada this next year. We don't know, but we've gone from one side of the country all the way to the other. You know, if you look at a map of the United States, we started up in the Northeast, Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine kind of area. We've gone, you know, all the way down to the bottom of the country, taken the southern route over to the Southwest desert area, going up through the coastal region of California in a couple of months. But predominantly, I visit places that are preserved in nature. We've been in a couple of cities just because I want to experience everything. But mostly, you know, we spend a lot of time in nature in state and national parks. And we've, you know, everywhere we go, we have dogs, so we're a little bit limited in what we can do, but everywhere we go, we're always getting out on the land. It's about connecting with the land for me. And you know, I love the story of Jesus, you know, going out into the desert and communing and, you know, taking his time out there where he could really hear God. I'm very much the same way. So, you know, getting out to those quiet places is nice, but a lot of national parks. Montana really stands out for me too. Montana was just a really beautiful, beautiful place to be. And they have, I think it's the largest freshwater lake on this side of what we call, you know, the Mississippi in the United States. So it's a very large lake. And I think this next year will be, last year was about connecting with places. I think this year coming up is going to be about connecting with people.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So what would you say is the biggest lesson that you've learned from the change over the last 4 years that you've had?
Oh, that's an easy one for me. It's this. um, Nothing really changes if we don't change. And so I think we as human beings can have a tendency towards wanting to escape our current situations or realities when they get uncomfortable or, stagnant, boring, frustrating, challenging in whatever capacity. And that certainly is understandable. But just moving away from them. So, I'll use whether we sell our house and jump in an Airstream and start traveling, or we, leave our relationship of 20 years, or we, leave that job, after, 15 years or what have you, whatever the changes that we're thinking of making, we really have to be sure that we also are willing to change on the inside, because what will happen is as soon as we get to the next situation, the next relationship, the next job, the next place to live, those same things will come up if we're not addressing what's inside of us, the unrest inside of us. And so my theory is I do a lot of spiritual fluency interviews with people about their spiritual connection. I really believe that when we don't have a really strong connection to divine, universal God energy, source energy, we feel a lack, we feel a disconnect. And until we heal that, until we heal our connection with source energy, which often for some people is just in nature too, right? Until we heal that, we're going to continue to feel unrest. But once we do heal whatever it is that's unrestful inside of us, it doesn't matter where we are or what we're doing. It really doesn't, because then we're in a place of joy. We're in a place of our own truth. So that's what I would say I've learned.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you. That's very extremely wise. And do you have a favorite quote or um, sort of insight that you'd like to share?
Yeah, my favorite quote really, it came from a book that was written about an old Chippewa medicine woman, and a woman's journeys of learning from her over the course of many years. And the old Chippewa medicine woman's name was No Eyes. She was blind, she couldn't see. But in one of the books, No Eyes said to her, she said, hell would be going to heaven when I die and having God tell me all of the things I could have done if only I had tried.
Wow, that sends shivers down me. Just
Yeah,
wow. Thank you. Thank you.
yeah, thank you.
Living proof of that. So thank you so much for sharing your journey with us, Pallah, today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for this time. And you have to hit it again.